Ethan Parker stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan apartment, adjusting the collar of his tailored charcoal suit. At 38, he was at the height of his career, a world-renowned architect whose designs had transformed skylines across the globe. His work graced the covers of architectural magazines, and tonight, he was preparing for what many considered the social event of the season, his wedding to Victoria Hale, an accomplished entrepreneur and the daughter of a prominent real estate tycoon. Yet, as he prepared for the evening, a gnawing unease crept into his thoughts, a reminder of someone he hadn't seen in years. The wedding promised to be a dazzling display of sophistication, a testament to Ethan's refined taste and success. From the custom floral installations to the exclusive guest list filled with industry titans, every detail was meticulously planned. But amid the whirlwind of last-minute arrangements, Ethan found himself distracted by one particular envelope sitting on his desk. The invitation addressed to Sarah Blake, his former college girlfriend. It had been over 7 years since Ethan last saw Sarah. Back then, he was a driven young man, willing to sacrifice everything, including their relationship, to chase his ambitions. Sending her an invitation wasn't merely a polite gesture. It was a deliberate move, one fueled by a mixture of unresolved emotions and pride. Ethan wanted Sarah to see the life he had built, the heights he had reached without her. Yet a small voice inside him wondered if she had moved on, and whether she would see through the facade he had carefully constructed. But as the evening approached, he couldn't shake a strange sense of unease. Ethan Parker's journey with Sarah Blake began during their college years at the University of Chicago. Both were ambitious students in the architecture program, drawn together by their shared passion for design and their late-night brainstorming sessions in the studio. Ethan's sketches were bold and visionary, while Sarah's designs carried a warmth and human touch that balanced his ambition. Together they dreamed of building a future where their work would leave a lasting impact on the world. Their relationship was intense and full of promise, but it wasn't without its challenges. Ethan's drive to succeed often led him to prioritize his aspirations over everything else, including Sarah. She, in turn, tried to anchor him to the present, reminding him to savor their small moments together. Despite their differences, they complemented each other in ways neither had experienced before. Things changed during their final year of college when Ethan received an offer to join a prestigious firm in Dubai. It was an opportunity that promised global recognition and the chance to work on groundbreaking projects. But it came with a cost. To accept, Ethan would have to leave Sarah and their budding plans behind. The night Ethan told Sarah about his decision was etched into his memory. They were in their small apartment, with rain tapping against the window. Sarah had begged him to stay, her voice trembling with emotion. "Ethan, we can figure this out together," she said, her hands clutching his. "You don't have to leave everything behind." But Ethan had already made up his mind. His eyes were fixed on the future, and he believed that letting go of their relationship was a necessary sacrifice for his career. As Sarah stood in the doorway watching him pack, her expression was a mixture of heartbreak and resignation. The years that followed were a blur of achievements for Ethan. He moved from one major project to the next, climbing the ranks in the architectural world. Yet, in his quiet moments, memories of Sarah lingered. He told himself that leaving her was the right decision, that it was all part of the price of success. When Ethan sent Sarah an invitation to his wedding, he convinced himself it was closure. He wanted her to see how far he had come, to confirm that the choice he made all those years ago was worth it. Yet, deep down, there was a small part of him that wondered if she had moved on, or if she still thought about the life they might have built together. As Ethan adjusted his cufflinks in preparation for his wedding, he thought about Sarah one last time. The Hale estate in the Hamptons was a masterpiece in itself, chosen to reflect the grandeur of Ethan and Victoria's union. Yet, as Ethan surveyed the meticulously planned event, a strange hollowness settled in his chest, as if all this grandeur couldn't mask what was missing. The sprawling property featured manicured gardens, cascading fountains, and a glass pavilion designed to showcase both the natural beauty of the surroundings and the architectural precision that defined Ethan's career. Guests were arriving in luxury cars, their conversations buzzing with anticipation of the ceremony. Ethan moved through the crowd with practiced charm, exchanging pleasantries with high-profile guests. Yet his attention kept drifting toward the main entrance, where every new arrival seemed to make his pulse quicken. When Sarah Blake finally appeared, it was as if the world around him blurred. She was as radiant as he remembered, dressed in a simple yet elegant navy dress that contrasted with the extravagance around her. But it wasn't just Sarah who drew Ethan's focus. It was the little girl walking beside her. The child, no older than 6, clutched Sarah's hand and gazed wide-eyed at the decorations, her curly brown hair catching the sunlight. Ethan froze. The girl's green eyes were strikingly familiar, a mirror of his own from old photographs. His breath caught, and a knot formed in his chest as the pieces began to fall into place. "Ethan?" Victoria's voice cut through his thoughts. She approached with her usual confidence, placing a hand on his arm. "The chef wants your approval on the final menu." "Yes, of course," Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside him. As Victoria moved away, Ethan's gaze returned to Sarah and the child. They were making their way through the crowd, drawing polite smiles but little attention in the sea of opulence. When Sarah spotted him, their eyes met, and for a moment, neither moved. Sarah's expression was calm, though her lips tightened slightly, betraying the tension she carried. Ethan, on the other hand, felt a storm of emotions: shock, confusion, and an inexplicable sense of urgency. Unable to contain himself, Ethan made his way toward them. His movements were deliberate, yet his heart raced with each step. When he stood before them, words failed him for a moment. "Sarah?" he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes shifted to the girl, who was now hiding slightly behind Sarah's leg. "And who's this?" Sarah didn't flinch. Her voice was steady as she replied, "This is Emily, my daughter." Ethan's breath hitched, his mind scrambling to process the words. He looked at Emily again. Those green eyes, so unmistakably his, and felt the ground beneath him shift. Ethan's gaze lingered on Emily, taking in every detail: the curve of her chin, the way her hair curled just like his used to, and those unmistakable green eyes. His mind reeled, recalling the night he left Sarah all those years ago. Could it really be? "Emily," Sarah said gently, nudging the girl forward. "This is Mr. Parker. He's an old friend." Emily peeked out from behind her mother and gave Ethan a shy smile. "Hi," she said softly. Ethan knelt to her level, his voice catching as he replied, "Hi, Emily." Ethan stood frozen in place as Sarah and Emily walked further into the estate. The air seemed heavier now, and the bustling noise of the wedding preparations faded into the background. Questions raced through his mind, colliding with memories of their past. Unable to wait any longer, Ethan followed them, weaving through the crowd until he reached a quieter corner of the garden. "Sarah?" he called, his voice firm yet tinged with unease. She turned slowly, her expression guarded. Emily, distracted by a nearby fountain, wandered off a few steps, leaving them alone. Ethan's voice lowered as he asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah sighed, crossing her arms as if bracing herself. "I tried, Ethan," she said evenly. "After you left for Dubai, I called, I emailed, multiple times. Your assistant made it very clear you were too busy to be bothered." Ethan flinched at her words, a pang of guilt tightening his chest. He recalled the early days of his career, consumed by late nights, endless meetings, and an unrelenting drive to succeed. In his mind, cutting ties with Sarah had been necessary, but now it felt like a reckless act of selfishness. "That doesn't excuse this," he countered, his tone softening but still firm. "I had a right to know Sarah. She's my daughter." "She's my daughter," Sarah shot back, her voice steady but filled with quiet frustration. For years I raised her alone. I couldn't wait for you to decide when or if we were important enough to fit into your life. I did what I thought was best, for her and for me." Ethan took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't know," he said, almost to himself. "If I had known," Sarah interrupted him, her tone sharp, "would you have done anything differently? You were halfway across the world, Ethan. Your career always came first. Do you think I wanted Emily to grow up feeling like an afterthought?" Her words cut deeper than Ethan expected. He had spent years convincing himself that his sacrifices were justified, that success demanded such choices. But now, faced with the consequence of those choices, he felt an ache that no amount of accolades could soothe. "I want to fix this," he said, his voice low but resolute. "I want to be part of her life." Sarah shook her head slightly, a mixture of skepticism and weariness in her expression. "Ethan, it's not that simple. You can't just walk in and decide to be a father because it's convenient now. Emily deserves stability, not a whirlwind of promises." "I'm not asking for a shortcut," Ethan replied, his eyes meeting hers with determination. "I'll prove it, Sarah. Whatever it takes, I'll prove that I can be the father she deserves." Sarah studied him for a moment, her expression softening just slightly. "Actions, Ethan," she said quietly, "not words. Emily comes first, always." As Sarah turned to call Emily back, Ethan stood rooted to the spot, her words echoing in his mind. For the first time in years, the man who thrived on control felt completely unmoored. Ethan returned to the main hall of the estate, his mind in turmoil. The grand decorations, the orchestra's elegant melodies, and the hum of conversation from the high-profile guests now felt suffocating. He glanced toward the crowd and saw Victoria, radiant in her ivory gown, laughing effortlessly with her friends. She caught his eye and waved him over. But Ethan's feet felt anchored to the floor. He had spent years perfecting this image of success. An accomplished architect, engaged to a woman whose name carried influence as much as beauty. Yet, for the first time, the life he had meticulously built felt hollow. Gathering his resolve, Ethan approached Victoria, pulling her aside to a quiet alcove. She smiled at him, oblivious to the storm brewing within. "Is everything ready for the ceremony?" she asked, her tone light. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "Victoria, there's something I need to tell you." The smile faded from her face as she saw the seriousness in his eyes. "What's going on, Ethan?" He hesitated for only a moment before saying, "Sarah Blake. She's here. And the little girl with her, Emily, is my daughter." Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? How is that possible? Ethan, you've never mentioned her before." "I didn't know," he admitted, his voice tinged with regret. "I found out today, but now that I know, I can't ignore it." "You're not seriously thinking about, what, canceling the wedding?" she asked, her tone sharp. Ethan nodded slowly. "I can't go through with this, Victoria. My daughter needs me. I need to fix this, no matter what it costs." Victoria stared at him, her expression hardening. "This will ruin everything, Ethan." "Maybe it will," he said quietly, "but it's the right thing to do." The days following the canceled wedding were a blur of headlines and furious phone calls. Victoria's family was outraged, business partners expressed concern, and Ethan's once polished reputation seemed to teeter on the edge of scandal. Yet, amidst the chaos, Ethan felt a strange clarity. He knew what he needed to do. Ethan reached out to Sarah, humbly requesting the chance to spend time with Emily. At first, Sarah was hesitant, unsure if Ethan's intentions were genuine or fleeting. "This isn't about making yourself feel better," she warned. "Emily needs consistency, not grand gestures or empty promises." Ethan agreed, knowing words wouldn't be enough. His first opportunity came on a quiet weekday afternoon when he picked Emily up from school. As she emerged from the building clutching her backpack, her eyes widened slightly upon seeing him. "Hi, Emily," Ethan said, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "How was school?" "Good," she replied shyly, glancing at her mother for reassurance. "Are we going to the park now?" Ethan nodded, offering her a smile. "We are. I've heard you're pretty fast on the swings." At the park, Ethan quickly realized how much he had missed. Emily was full of curiosity and energy, talking about her favorite animals, her love for drawing, and her dream of becoming a veterinarian. Ethan listened intently, amazed by her vibrant personality. Sarah watched from a distance, her skepticism slowly giving way to cautious hope. Ethan was different. He wasn't the driven, self-absorbed man she once knew. He was present, engaged, and genuinely trying to connect with Emily. As the weeks passed, Ethan became a steady presence in Emily's life. He attended her school events, helped with her homework, and embraced every small moment with her. Slowly but surely, the walls Sarah had built around her heart began to crack. A year had passed since the day Ethan's life took a drastic turn. Gone were the extravagant galas and relentless meetings that once defined his days. Instead, his time was now filled with school drop-offs, family dinners, and spontaneous trips to the park with Emily. One crisp autumn afternoon, Ethan, Sarah, and Emily found themselves at a quiet park near the city. Emily darted across the playground, her laughter ringing through the air as she climbed the jungle gym. Ethan and Sarah sat on a nearby bench, watching her with shared contentment. "You've really changed," Sarah said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. Ethan turned to her, his expression earnest. "You and Emily gave me something I didn't know I was missing. For the first time, I feel like I'm living for something real." Sarah smiled, but there was a hint of reservation in her eyes. Ethan had proven himself to be a dedicated father, but she still hesitated to let her guard down completely. It wasn't just about her. It was about protecting Emily's world. Ethan reached into his coat pocket, his heart pounding as he held a small box in his hands. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady despite the surge of emotions. "I know I can't erase the mistakes I made, but I also know I don't want to spend another day without you and Emily in my life. Completely." He opened the box, revealing a delicate emerald ring. "Will you marry me? Not for the past, but for the future. We can build together." Sarah stared at the ring, tears welling in her eyes. Slowly she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. As Emily ran over, curious about the commotion, Ethan scooped her up, his grin wide. "We're going to be a family," he told her. Under the golden glow of the setting sun, they embraced, united by hope and love for a new beginning. For the first time, Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose, not in the grand structures he built, but in the family he was rebuilding, one moment at a time.